Hi, everybody. This is Donna Reed. I traveled in Up With People 1976A. It's been a minute since I've done an interview. It's been a few months, and I am happy today to have a husband and wife team who both traveled, but not at the same time. So welcome, Randy and Leanne Hamilton.
Hi, Donna.
Hi, Donna.
Thanks for joining. And just so you guys know, they're literally up the road about what, 4 or 5 miles from me?
Not even that, maybe 4 miles.
Yeah,
and
something
here
like
in
that.
the Tucson area with all the cactus and the heat of the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, tell me a little bit, first of all, introduce yourselves one at a time. Leanne, give everybody your maiden name and tell everybody what year you first traveled.
Yeah, and since I'm older than Randy, I'll go
There you
first.
go. Yeah.
And so I'm Leanne Markle Hamilton, and I'm from Tucson, Arizona, and traveled in 77D, had seen some shows, around when I was a kid growing up, and we'd hosted some folks. So I interviewed at the office in Tucson and just traveled that 1 year.
Okay, and who did you interview with at the office?
Terry Woods, I think, interviewed me at the office. And at the time, Randy's sister, Nancy Hamilton, also traveled, but in a different cast. And we did some fundraising together. And after I came back from my year, and Nancy did too, she was in 77A,
Okay,
we both said, hey, Randy, you ought to go do this.
that's awesome. So did you guys go to the same high school?
Yes, we did.
Okay,
So-
and Randy, when did you first travel then? In 78, I'm guessing?
No, I traveled in 7980.
7980, okay.
As Leanne mentioned, my sister traveled, and I kind of met Leanne when I was senior in high school,
Okay.
and she's a freshman in college.
Okay.
And so we had gone to the same high school, but we didn't really know each other in high school.
Okay.
And we also lived in the same square mile of Tucson. So
Really?
I knew of the Markles and she knew of the Hamiltons, but we didn't really know each other.
Yeah.
And then when my sister was going to end Up With People, and another friend of mine also encouraged me to join a church choir that Leanne was involved in. I wasn't musically trained. I hadn't been in choir like Leanne had been, but this youth program seemed to be pretty good. And so I met Leanne at the church choir first.
Okay.
That cute. And um, and then I got to know her better because she was going to end Up With People, and so was my sister. And I didn't know anything about Up With People. Even though my sister was going into it, I didn't really know anything about it. So my first exposure to Up With People was actually through Leanne and her dress rehearsal.
Really?
That was the first show
Wow.
I ever saw was Leanne's dress rehearsal.
At the University of Arizona, it's
Centennial Hall?
Yeah, well, back then they called it the main auditorium, but yeah, we're old.
Okay. I don't
Yeah.
remember that. That's interesting. Okay. Okay. And so,
So I traveled 2 years after she traveled. She
Okay.
traveled for a year, and I had just gotten to know her just before she goes. So we kind of got to know each other through the mail while she was traveling. And
back in the day.
back when it took 4 or 5 weeks for your letter to catch up with cast. And anyway, when she came home and we were in a year of college together, is when my sister and Leanne approached me and said, we think you ought to do Up With People. And I said, I'm going to be going into my 3rd year of engineering school.
Oh.
Engineers don't do Up With People. And they turned to me and said, engineers need to do Up With People.
Yes.
Would be really good for you. Yeah.
And they were exactly right. It was the best decision I ever made.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So, Leanne, did you know Nancy in high school?
Again, Randy has 8 siblings, so I knew
Oh,
of
that's
him.
right. Yeah.
And we were in different neighborhoods, but my swim team swam against his swim team. And so we knew the Markles, we knew the Hamiltons, but we didn't really know each other. We were all in different classes, and it was a big high school. So no, didn't really know them. And it was.
And that was Saguaro? Is that right?
School in Tucson. There's quite a few alumni from Saguaro.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Okay. So I'm going to ask you some of the regular Up With People questions before I get more into like your life. after. So Leanne, when you traveled, you know, I was bicentennial, I was a year before you. So we were like a whole lot of United States and 6 weeks in Mexico. We spent a lot of time in Texas. Where did your tour take you?
We went east of the Mississippi, did 14 states, and that included at the beginning of the year, and then we were in Europe for 5 months. We were in Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Norway, Sweden, and then came back and did the remaining states. But they were all east of the Mississippi, so very few of my friends or family saw me after I left Tucson, and I was gone that whole next year. And so that
Okay.
was hard. We had just started kind of liking each other before we hit the road. So we literally dated through the mail. And this was back in a time when it might cost, $10 a minute, long distance from a train station in Germany or post office or
Yeah,
wherever it
a
is.
collect call or something, maybe
Yeah.
even. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was great.
And Randy, where did your tour take you?
Well, I was very fortunate, and the tour I got to go on was got to go to some of the same places that Leanne did, which was outstanding in Norway, Sweden, and then we also added on Finland. We didn't get down to Denmark or
Belgium
or Belgium like her cast did, but the first part of the year though we did a tour of Colorado, which was just fantastic. Then we did a 14 city tour of Nebraska, and people
Your
didn't.
Nebraska was like our Texas.
Yeah.
And I think we did 12 cities in Michigan, and we were Ohio, Indiana, and New York, and Virginia, and West Virginia, and Illinois. So,
And then we were fortunate enough to do the halftime of the Super Bowl in 79.
Oh, okay.
So
Was that the one in Pontiac?
that was in the one in Pasadena,
In
California.
Pasadena. Okay, because I remember that must have been like 80 or something. I had married, I'd moved back home, and I drove up and watched them rehearse up in
and can I
Michigan.
just, since we're bragging here,
Yeah,
when
go brag.
full halftime, I go, yeah, and my cast got to perform with Stevie Wonder in Michigan at a deaf and blind school. And he was at the apex of his career. So whenever we hear a Stevie Wonder song come on the, whatever we're listening to, and it's frequently, I think we just had one last night. I always say, did I ever tell you that I sang with Stevie Wonder?
Caleb and his friends do that when they're together, like, oh, remember when? And now, his wife, who is not an alumni, is like, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
Go again.
We understand each other because we've been through this. And like when we go to reunions, I get when you're kissing and hugging and sitting and, laying in each other's laps, because that's good on the road. And it's, if there's any young alumni out there listening, you'll still be doing it when you're in your 60s, and it's still, lifelong friendships.
Yeah.
From the past.
I just had that.
For us both to have the opportunity to travel, it just made that so much more unique. And for us to have both experienced it and experienced it in separate years, but still together over the course of
No, I think that's phenomenal. It's interesting you say that. I just had a conversation via text with a young man who's coming here to buy a house, and I was told him I was doing these interviews, and I sent him the channel, and he had talked about, I'd said something. I said, well, when you come here, we'll have dinner. And he goes, won't your boyfriend get mad? And I'm like, if men get mad about me having a male friend, we're in trouble, because after Up With People, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not something to deal with. So, okay. So one of the things that I like to ask people, you guys, besides where your tour was, is, Randy, I'm going to start with you. Is there anything that you ate on the road that just was nauseating and you would never eat it again?
I'm pretty tolerant. I mean, a lot of people in my cast had trouble eating blood pudding, which is very popular in the schools in Scandinavia, which is basically flour and blood from the pig.
Yum.
But I actually liked it. So probably the first time I had pickled herring maybe got me a little bit, but now it's one of my favorite things. And the only time I ever really think I got nauseated was when I was with the host family that probably served me some rancid meat.
Oh, okay. Then it doesn't matter what the meat was, right? Because it was just bad. What about you, Leanne? Anything that
You know, it was just new food. My mom was a pretty boring cook. She was a divorced mom raising 3 kids. We ate a lot of macaroni and cheese out of the box, nothing too adventurous. So when I ended up in Norway and it was Thanksgiving, my host family, they're so sweet. They put an American flag on the table and they brought out all this little, well, these shrimp that had, antennas and eyes and feet. And they just put it in on my plate and said, you go first. And I thought, I do not know what to do. And I'd had aquarium as a kid, so I'm looking at this as a little animal practically, but it's dead. And clearly I'm supposed to eat it. And they just said, go ahead. And they said, you pull the head off first and then the tail, and it's that deveining. And it was just new and it was
Yeah,
yummy. They had some mayonnaise and but that was so a lot of fish, because we
yeah,
were in areas surrounded by the Baltic and the North Sea.
yeah,
And so that was a big change for me in the pickled herring. But we've
yeah.
since, thanks to Mia Hansen, that pickled herring and schnapps is a really good combo.
And
Aquavit.
that year that a group of us, there were like 90 of us that went for midsummer to Sweden. And my family's Swedish, and the men, like I remember Christmases in the basement and what they would eat, and then what I would eat,
Yeah.
And that year we had the herring with 3 or 4 different sauces, and I thought, okay, I'm like in my 50s. I just need to do this. And I was like, that mustard one is pretty good.
It's pretty good stuff. So it's kind of an acquired taste. Same thing with in Norway, yetost, which is a brown caramelized kind of a cheese. People, first taste, they're like, "Ooh, I'm not sure I like this." And after a while, you're like, "Oh, I get this," So
Yeah,
some of it is getting accustomed. And I think
yeah,
every community, every culture, every family has something that another family might find different, but
yeah,
really
yeah.
not big differences,
It's what you grew up with. Caleb just came back from Sweden and he brought back salted licorice, like in 3 varieties. He loves, yeah, people either really like it or they don't. So, okay, your shows, Leanne, tell me, in your show, you were pushed on through, right? Because that was a year right
Right.
after me.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a song in your show? And I usually preemptively say you can't say roads or let the river flow, or like, is there a song that was maybe unique to your year or that means a lot to you from that year on the road?
Oh, I start crying. Moonrider,
Moonrider. It's a
which
great
was,
one.
the based on the writings and the observations of Eugene Cernan, the last man to walk on the moon. And Randy and I were
Right.
fortunate enough to meet Eugene a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's looking at the world without any borders, without any fighting, without any fear. And I just get goosebumps when we sing that. And I was just humming, another one came to mind, which was Oak Tree, which was,
Oh, I like that one.
it wasn't one of the main things people remember. It's never sung at reunions, but it's like, gotta live in this world as if we plan to stay.
Mhm.
Even our opening song talked about climate, the weather's acting crazy, the North Pole's slipping south. That was in 1977.
Isn't it weird? Oh, that just gave me chills. Like I haven't thought about those words
Yeah.
for,
So a lot of focus on, hey, we got to take care of this planet. We got to be here. We got to be neighbors. We're
yeah,
more the same than we are different. Those themes still just resonate with
yeah,
me. I
yeah.
told you the song, sorry.
No, it's fine. I think I'm gonna say I think Tim Lane might have sung Oak Tree on the recording of that, maybe.
Another one was Give the Children Back Their Childhood, which was written upon the reflection of the
Ireland.
struggles and wars between North Ireland and Ireland.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, that just,
Yeah, yeah,
let's make the children fight our wars.
right, yeah. Randy, what about your show?
Well, ours was 2 years after Leanne, and so it wasn't the same show,
Right, right.
which was good. It did have Moonrider in it though, because that was just a blockbuster.
Hung around for a while. Yep.
And but we also, I would say Till Everyone Is Home.
Oh, I
And
think that, isn't that one of the ones that Ralph said and was one of his favorites?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
how can there be peace in this world
Yeah.
till everyone is home,
That-
and
uh,
boy, it
They came
continues.
up with some good songs, didn't they?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my
We were
God.
so fortunate. And it's hard to explain to people that don't know Up With People. They're like, so what music did you sing? And you say, well, it was mostly original by these amazing songwriters. And then people are like, oh, nice. And then they move
Yeah,
on.
right. And then they go on and they know the
Uh,
medley. They know the medley with that we did.
yes, they all do, oh, up the
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
And you're like, there was so many meaningful songs that really did stick with people after you
yeah,
left the town.
yeah.
And still resonate today.
On Leanne, I think that I have seen you on the Remembering Tucson Facebook page and somebody posted about Up with People. There was like 300 comments, mostly from people who never traveled. So it was just
Yeah.
fascinating, like, and who housed somebody, and oh, I met these people. And then, of course, the corny comments, and then the ones who quoted lyrics. I found it, as a person who's only lived here 24 years, um, to listen and read what all these people have said through the years and what those songs mean to us, having performed them in places where the meaning is just intense, right? Yeah,
Like singing Till Everyone is Home at a refugee camp, which
right.
we did in Sweden.
Yeah,
It was, you
yeah,
know, very powerful.
yeah, yeah. All right, so your Up with People tour's over. Leanne, you're home. You're now in college. Randy, you take a break. You go right to Up with People. Then you come back and you clearly finish college because I know you're an engineer. So
Right.
and and then did you just kind of rekindle and start dating when you got back after your letter writing?
Well, we had a year in between when I traveled and Leanne traveled that really solidified our relationship,
Ah,
both going to college. And then,
As sophomores.
for her to tell me to go away for a year, I felt pretty confident that,
But I worked really hard to help him raise his tuition. I probably worked harder on his than mine because I thought this is really a good thing. You should do it.
yeah.
wow.
And
That's
so
nice.
when we came home, we really had a bond, with all the letter writing, with the common experiences. I got to stay in some of the host families that Leanne stayed in.
Ah, that's neat.
And that was just, so neat
Yeah.
to, especially the first one that I had over in Europe. We performed at halftime in the Super Bowl, and then the day after the Super Bowl, we had a 72-hour travel day.
I think I've heard that from someone else.
72 hours where we flew to Finland, got on a boat in Finland, got to go to Stockholm, got on a train in Stockholm to go to Oslo, stayed in a youth hostel in Oslo, and got on a train the next day to go to
In
Norway, which is my first host family in Europe.
Why did they
And
fly you to Finland? That's so
it's a long
It's a long
story,
story.
but at any rate, I get there and I'm diagnosed with pneumonia.
Oh, perfect.
And so here I am with a family that Leanne cherished and adored, and they adored her.
Who I still get texts from my host mom. She's
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we hear from
80
her
almost daily.
almost daily, huh?
Wow.
And so this is her first host mom. I don't have to explain Up with People. I don't have to feel bad about being sick and being not being in the show, and and then I had a
Awesome.
host dad who came and saw me every day on his cross country skis. A different host dad who was a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Came and saw me every day on cross country skis and took care of me. So, and then
Wow.
I had about 3 other host families that Leanne had too in the course of my
That's cool.
travel.
All right, Leanne, reach over to your right, show everybody your flags. Do you still have them there?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So we've hosted a lot of folks over the years. Most of these are Up with People countries, represented
Yeah.
members, but also we've hosted some international students at the University of Arizona. So whenever they come, actually we had some friends over last night who are Dutch, so we got out our Dutch and American flag, or if we have a Danish person, or so we've
That's
hosted
awesome.
a few Canadians, we've hosted Norwegian, Mexican, Iraqi.
So if you're ever on a game show where you have to name the flag or you're doing trivia, you should do pretty well with it because you got a lot of the flags.
Yeah, we do better
would
than.
hope. I don't know.
Yeah, so we've been fortunate to host a lot.
Yeah.
Living here in Tucson, both of us having traveled
Yeah.
didn't have to convince the spouse that it was a good thing to do,
Yeah, we really should do this. Yeah. So the other thing is you both have been cast reps, and Leanne, are you still your cast rep?
Oh, yes, 47 years.
And Randy, I just watched, online some of your shenanigans in Europe, because your cast got together over there and they said such wonderful things about you. So did you have a lot of Europeans, and did you choose to do your reunion in Europe because of for a specific reason, Randy? How did that come about?
Well, when up with people did their reunions for so long in Tucson, always felt so fortunate.
Yeah.
And then
No plane fare.
when they started to look elsewhere and they went up to Scottsdale, I thought they did a fantastic job pulling that off too. And but it wasn't clear several years ago that there was going to be a continuation of where the reunions were going to be. So
Right.
one of my Danish castmates, Inga-Lisa Holmanen, uh, uh, said, we don't know what it's going to be like. We don't know where it's going to be. Maybe we ought to plan our own reunion. And I said, sounds great. It'd be a great opportunity to have one in Europe and make it a little bit more inviting. And then after we put some work and effort into trying to organize that, say 3 years ago, Up with People announced that the Alumni Association announced that they're going to have their first with their reunion in Limerick. And I'm Irish, so I was like, that's great,
Yeah.
So we decided we'd try to have our reunion just the weekend before
Okay.
their thing, because we didn't want to give up on what we had thought would draw some people in our cast. And so we had it the week before.
Nice.
And decided and had a pretty good gathering. We had 38 people total, including
That's
spouses.
a great gathering, Randy. I mean, we're getting like 14 to 16 for our next one. So
Yeah. So it was a very good, and it came, quite a few of our Scandinavian friends came there, and because we had a number in our cast.
Thanks to my cast.
Yes, most of the Scandinavians that traveled in my year were probably interviewed in Leanne's year.
that's for sure.
Or at least saw their show. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
A little
awesome.
competitive,
So
but that's
anyhow,
okay.
we headed to Roskilde, Denmark, and pulled off a great time where we just really got to spend a lot of close time together.
I'll have to tell Caleb to get on your Facebook page or connect, because you guys did so many of the same places that his cast did in 2013. It's why right now my nephew's living in Utrecht and they performed in Utrecht, whatever. So, and we just didn't have that. We had a whole lot of Mexico, in the bicentennial year, which leads me to sort of another thing. And I mentioned this online when I was talking about who to interview and stuff. Again, my experience was 1 year on the road, and then cast rep and BOG, and helping with reunions once I moved here, which is what gave me more of the international piece. I mean, I can remember the summer of '76, all of our international students were across the front of the gym floor on campus at the same time. They all just stood there like in a line, because it had been 75, 76, and they had interviewed predominantly Americans, and things like that. So the fact that 30% or 40% of a cast was now non-American was so not ours,
Yeah.
and Caleb had that experience, and it was evident. And when you say your host mom texts you, he and Jessica just visited his host in Rome and on their honeymoon and spent time. And it's his 11 years, 10 years, 11 years since he traveled. And I just think that's great. And I think a lot of that comes with modern technology.
Yeah. Here's some very old technology. Here's my first host family in Tuckahoe, New York. I'll never forget Mama DeVito tucking me into bed at age 18, but I kept a little journal on all my host families. And then when I came back that year, my family always sent lots of Christmas cards. And so I wrote to, I think, almost all my host families.
Wow.
And some, about half of them wrote back, and that was wonderful. And that started. And so it took a lot of effort to keep in touch with host families. And then of
Right.
course, castmates. I used to type out, people would send me letters and I would retype their letters and go to a store and copy them to send out, updates to keep people
Wow.
in touch. It was very labor intensive, so now with Facebook and WhatsApp and texting, it's so much easier, but
Yeah.
still in touch with, and actually after Randy's reunion in Roskilde, Denmark, we went to visit my dear host family in Aarhus, Denmark, and I spent Christmas there because I couldn't afford to fly home to Tucson from
Right.
Denmark at Christmas time, and saw my 85-year-old host mom who took care of me. I was sick during the year, or during Christmas especially, and 3 of my host sisters, 1 of my host brothers, got to stay with them and see them, and it's just wonderful. And Randy's, there's just a few, and you know what I found shortly after up with people, it was the places where I was either sick or doing PR were those families that, you really developed a bond with.
Because you're there kind of a lot, right?
And they took care of you, or you were there for 2 weeks, so
That's neat.
that's been, it's great. We have these connections with our castmates, but the host families was very special to me. And I didn't grow up around my grandparents. I got to visit them occasionally.
Yep.
But I enjoyed being around people who might have been older. But I reconnected with a host mom after 40 years in Belgium. I was leading a study trip of U of A students. And I went, oh, Mechelen, Belgium. That was our first city. I wonder if my host mom's still there. So I looked in my little book and I saw her son, 2 at the time. His name was Tom. And I thought, well, he's probably still got the same name. So I looked on LinkedIn, boom, there is Tom, Hermans. And I said, hey, I stayed with you when you were 2. Is your family still around? And so I met at a cafe in Mechelen, Belgium. It was a cafe called Friends.
That's
and
neat.
Fun to sit down and see Imelda, my host mom. She had been a young mom at the time.
Wow.
And I just said, hey, what have you been doing the last 40 years? So it's not too late. I want to encourage, if there's anybody listening to this, my message is that the time and energy that you invest in maintaining or reestablishing connections is well worth it. It's time well spent. And so you can still find people. I have castmates who say, oh, I don't know where my host family is. I didn't keep track, or I lost my notes. I'm like, LinkedIn is a real easy way. A lot of Europeans use that. You got Google, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find people. I found a host brother from Norway. I said, hey, I don't know if I really thanked your host mom for knitting me a beautiful Norwegian sweater. So I works for Norwegian radio. I found his email. I said, is she still alive? Would you please let her know how grateful I am? I love this. It's such a great memento, and I appreciate that. So it's never too late to say.
And they appreciate being contacted too. You wouldn't believe,
That's neat. That's neat. So, you guys, Leanne, you just celebrated, because of LinkedIn, I know this, however many years you've had at the University of Arizona, 37, 38?
38, I guess.
38. And have you been in the same role predominantly?
Work at the campus health service,
Right.
and we do, I'm not a doctor or a nurse or a therapist, but we do education, health promotion, what we call harm reduction. So around all kinds of issues, whether it's sleep, stress, suicide prevention, mental health, sexual health, lots of alcohol.
Cynthia Chapman, by any chance? Is she in your division? This is all this personal stuff. She actually is living with my nephew. She's
oh my God. Okay, I just got a message from Cynthia, so that's funny. But I work at the U of A. I love being part of the health service, which has been there for well over 100 years. And then, it's part of the Division of Student Affairs at the University of Arizona. And I've also taught for the College of Public Health. Basically, I consider myself a health educator. Right. And my role is to provide resources to people to help them choose healthier, lives in whatever way that is, whether it's relationships, it's alcohol use, it's stress, it's sleep. So I work a lot with, young folks. Actually, in just a couple hours, I'm heading down to the U of A for a big event that's a welcome event for U of A students. So
she also led 5 study abroad programs.
I remember following some of that. Okay, my timer just said 10 minutes. Randy,
can I say something about that though? Because I would not, without Up with People, and I tell Blanton Belk this whenever I see him, I would not have had the courage or the connections, or maybe even the creativity
To do it.
to develop a study abroad, because I developed the whole thing, decided where to go, went to countries where I'd been, had connections,
Yep.
met some of the most awesome alumni through that, because I put out, like, hey, the value of a meal and cross-cultural communication. Would you be willing to host my students for a night for dinner? So I met some wonderful alumni in
That's
Belgium, Netherlands, and Denmark, who I now consider, good friends. So it's not just about the cast.
Oh, I agree.
We all share this bond, and my role on the board of governors helping to start chapters abroad. I'll never forget the first fax I ever got came from Japan when they were starting a
working
chapter.
over there.
Yeah.
I think that my brother and I were talking about how people think that we are exactly the same, only totally different. And I feel like that's Up with People. I feel like it's exactly the same, only different. Like siblings who have a different, you get on the bus afterwards and you have a different story, but you were all there in that place, meeting people, doing whatever it is you were doing. And, when you think about the fact that in a world, 23,000 of us did this,
Mhm.
so freaking lucky, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Randy's relative said, "You guys are so lucky. People all over the world. Like, do you
Yep.
realize how special that is?" And we're like, "Oh, that seems normal for other people." But
Right.
even our kids have benefited. Our son did a cross-country trip when he was in high school with a friend, and he stayed with Stu and Regine Shepherd and a castmate of Randy's in Colorado and another one in New York. And my daughter, we shipped her over to Belgium to stay with Ivo van der Vecken, who we hosted in '87. And so
Yeah.
both of our kids say, we've really benefited from your close connections through Up with People. Even though they didn't travel, they have had some cross-cultural experience, and it's made them better global citizens.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
and they met growing up, all the young people we
People that
hosted
came to
from
your,
Mexico, from Norway, from Switzerland, all our dear kids,
Yeah.
and they often joke, I'm your favorite kid, right?
Yeah.
I'm your you're all our favorite students.
Funny. All right. So Randy, I know you're a mechanical engineer, correct? And
Structural engineer.
structural, okay. So frankly, I'm not going to talk about engineering. What I'm going to talk about with you before we wrap this up is your family of music. Because I watch Leanne post videos when all of you Hamiltons get together and sing and play. And to be fair, you go to the Gaslight Music Hall a lot. I've gone there with you a couple of times, and Leanne called you her dancing man.
Thank you, Up with People.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. And so you clearly your whole family is musical. And have you always, you said you hadn't, and maybe it's outside the realm of engineering. Tell me quickly about that whole evolution.
Well, I have several sisters who are very musically talented. One's a music teacher.
Okay.
One has been a music director at a church for a long, long time. And but I was never really trained in music, but my family just always enjoyed music. And then after Up with People, it gave me some confidence to actually, try to sing. And never really learned to play an instrument, but there's still hope.
Yes, there's still time.
And but being a large family, if you got 4 or 5 of them that can play an instrument and sing,
Yeah.
you got a hootenanny, and we really just enjoy doing it. And so not only did I have my sister Nancy, but I had my youngest sister also traveled Up with People, Bobby Joe, and we're probably the 3 least talented musicians in the family.
I don't think that's true.
That's
You
not
better
true.
be careful.
That's not true. Fair to
You
my
have-
sisters, but
You
it's fair to
have
me.
8
But
very talented siblings.
no,
That's
um,
awesome.
but yeah, Up with People gave me the confidence to be able to perform in that way and get
Yeah.
on a Zoom and not be embarrassed.
When I was a kid, my dad used to always say that the radio was his best instrument that he could play. But my mom everybody played a little of something, like a little piano. I played violin and then I I kind of dropped that because I didn't know the violin could be a fiddle. If I had known, I might have kept going. But you know, and then I was French horn, and I had a brother that played a tuba, and a brother, and we used to do like old lang syne on the porch
That must
at,
sound
at New Year's
very
with these
sweet.
random instruments.
Well, when at my reunion that we just had, one of my castmates played the saw.
Okay, well,
Accomplished
He's a
violinist and
couple player, but
singer.
he pulled out a saw and played
you
played a
know
saw.
what? You do what you can do. So we have to wrap this up. Leanne, you have spent a little bit of time already talking about what you can do and what we can continue to do, not knowing the future of Up With People right now. Randy, would you have anything that you would share with younger alumni or children of alumni or alumni who aren't in touch? I don't know.
Well, I think having uh, the opportunity to be a cast rep and just stay in contact, don't give that up. Just don't give that up. There's so much that we can share with each other and with our kids. And I've had the
And
fortune,
grandkids?
yes,
Oh, yeah.
and I've had the fortunate being able to spend a bit of time with Blanton Belk here recently as he's turning 100 soon. And he has really encouraged me to, you know, write down some of these experiences
Oh,
that I had, that I have been able to tell him about, you know,
yeah.
just as he has written down his
Mm.
experiences and is
Great.
continuing to write down. So write down some of your experiences and Up With People as it has affected you as an adult. And I think that would be wonderful for us all to do.
And I want to thank you because this is a way of, you know, capturing our experiences. I don't know that we've ever recorded some of our wonderful,
Yeah.
the benefits of Up With People. So thank you, Donna, for hosting
Yeah.
the lounge and letting us tell our story. We really appreciate it.
It's so much fun for me. And I remember when Caleb interviewed me, my son, and he found out that I was a Navy ROTC finalist before I decided to join Up With People, and he was aghast. He was like, "You what?" You know, and he goes, "You would have been awful in the military." I'm like, "I know."
But it's
Anyway,
important to share our stories and to
yes.
document it. So Blanton has a good point with that.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it so much through the years. And my next one, I hope there's 6 people from the 2009 through the 2013 kind of era who have recorded Christmas songs a couple of years together. Children, you know, John Lanham, Bertie Kinder, and I'm trying to get those younger people to talk about why they have come together. So, all right, time's up. I'm glad we got this done after the beginnings of this today. That's a whole nother story. Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And I'll let you know when I make it live. Okay?
Okay, Donna.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care.